The assassination of Chris Hani, a story of a murder that nearly shattered a nation. On the morning of April 10th, 1993, the sun rose over a country on the edge. South Africa was in the final, fragile stages of dismantling apartheid. Talks were underway for the first democratic elections. Tensions were high, but hope was rising. At the center of that hope was a man named Chris Hani. Hani wasn't just a political figure. He was a symbol. A former commander of Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing of the ANC. A fierce anti-apartheid warrior. General Secretary of the South African Communist Party. To millions of black South Africans, he represented justice, resistance, and the future. But to others, especially those clinging to white minority rule, Chris Hani was a threat. That Saturday morning, Chris Hani went about his usual routine. He picked up the newspaper and returned home to Dawn Park, a quiet suburb east of Johannesburg. As he stepped out of his car, a man was waiting. That man was Janusz Walus, a Polish immigrant with far-right views and deep hatred for communists and the ANC. He had been following Hani, studying his movements, waiting for the right moment. He pulled out a 9mm pistol. 3 shots rang out. 2 struck Hani in the head and chest. 1 missed. His young daughter, Namakwizi, was inside the house. She was the first to find his body. Within minutes, the calm of Dawn Park shattered. Neighbors screamed. Police sirens echoed in the distance. And South Africa held its breath. Janusz Walus didn't get far. A neighbor had seen the whole thing. The car, the license plate, the face. Within hours, police had Walus in custody. The murder weapon was found. The case seemed simple, but soon it became clear he hadn't acted alone. Investigators uncovered a chilling connection. Clive Derby Lewis, a senior member of the Conservative Party and a former member of Parliament. He had helped plan the hit, provided the gun, and drawn up a hit list. Chris Hani was at the top. Both men were charged, Walus as the triggerman, Derby Lewis as the mastermind behind the scenes. So why Hani? The answer was chillingly simple: to throw South Africa into chaos. Walus and Derby Lewis believed that by killing a popular black leader, they could provoke a race war. They wanted to derail the negotiations that would lead to black majority rule. They wanted the country to burn. And for a moment, it almost worked. The news of Hani's assassination spread like wildfire. Within hours, townships were burning. Protests erupted. ANC supporters marched in fury. There were fears that the country would fall into civil war. Then came Nelson Mandela. In a solemn televised address that evening, Mandela, still not president, but already the moral leader of the nation, called for calm. I quote Nelson Mandela, "Tonight, I am reaching out to every South African, black and white. A white man full of hate came to our country and murdered Chris Hani. A white woman risked her life so that we may know and bring justice. Now is the time to stand together against those who want to destroy our country." His words steadied the nation. The revolution would not be hijacked by violence. Uncut. In the months that followed, both Janusz Walus and Clive Derby Lewis were convicted of murder. They were sentenced to death, but in 1995, South Africa abolished the death penalty. Their sentences were commuted to life in prison. For years, both men would petition for parole. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission rejected their applications, citing a lack of full disclosure and remorse. Derby Lewis was eventually granted medical parole in 2015 and died in 2016. Walus, after nearly 30 years behind bars, was finally granted parole in 2022, sparking renewed public outcry. Chris Hani's death could have torn South Africa apart, but in a strange way, it pulled it together. His assassination pushed negotiators to accelerate the democratic process. Just 1 year later, in April 1994, South Africa held its first free elections. Mandela became president. Apartheid was officially over. But the pain of that day, the loss of a revolutionary, a father, a leader, never fully faded. To this day, Chris Hani is remembered not only as a soldier and politician, but as a martyr for a freedom that was almost snatched away.